Good morning, friends. It's Megan from Wild Orchard Homestead, and this morning is a beautiful Monday morning. I'm in front of the greenhouse. It is so amazing out this morning. Just a nice, crisp, cool morning. And today I want to talk to you about something that is very near and dear to my heart, and it is how to start a family garden. And gardening is something that has changed my husband and I's life, and it's something that I want to share with you today. I can't wait to talk to you all about how to start seeds, where to source them, how to even plan out a garden, what to plant things in, what to put out, what to kind of start inside. We're standing in my beautiful garden right now. Not a lot is happening right now. It's late March, but things are starting to wake up and I can't wait to show you. So come along with me and let's chat gardening. So welcome to our garden. We are so excited about this space. It has been in the works for the last 3 years. It's something that is very near and dear to my heart, and we have been working a long time on this, and we have had so many ups and downs with weeds, trying to get the soil up to optimal health, and it has been a journey, let me tell you. This year is the first year that we flipped our garden into a like back to Eden style gardening with lots of wood chips and cardboard and no more weed barrier. That was something that we used for the last 2 years. It was not serving us well. So this is kind of our space, as you see behind me. And I'm going to take you along to just see what is growing in our garden. We are gardening in Greenville, South Carolina, zone 8A, and we have a long growing season here. Very fortunate for that part, but we do have really hot summers. So there are parts of our climate that are difficult, especially in the summer, for growing certain things. Right now for us is the time to start getting things ready to go out into the garden, whereas I know a lot of you are coming from places that still have snow. Gardening is so interesting and so fun to learn about all the different places that you can garden, and so many of you are doing amazing things. But I wanted to kind of show you and take you along with me. Let's see. So this first row, we have kind of our raised bed style over here with like a little courtyard. Sometimes we'll put a table right here for dinners. And this is our first perennial patch. So this is some strawberries that are ever bearing. And I also, you can see my asparagus. So I wanted to show you guys this because this is an example of companion planting, which is something that we're going to talk about. And you can see how I don't have a lot out here right now, but you see these things, everybody thinks they're onions. They do look like onions, but they're garlic. I have garlic growing down the row of the first, like 1, 2, 3, 4 rows. 2 of them are interplanted with snapdragons and yarrow. So I have them planted down the center so that I can plant things on the sides, because garlics have such a shallow root growth that it's actually not a big deal to plant them with other things. Some things still have row cover. This guy's kind of falling down though. They're my broad beans. We love these beans. Fava beans is another term for them. Here's some baby kale. We just harvested this the other day, so they're not huge, but they're looking good. So you can kind of see we have a mixture of flowers, vegetables, different things going on. Lots of space for what's to come too. And it's kind of hard to tell on these rows. You see the little onion sprouts? So this will be a row where I'll have onions growing down the middle and I'll have something else growing on either side. So that's something that is a common theme in our garden, is companion planting. Alliums and garlic are really easy to kind of sneak in with other plants because they actually help the soil kind of not be so compact, and they prevent bugs and all that stuff. This is one of my corner beds. You can see it's not perfect. We literally just capped it with some boards. It's slightly raised, but this is where my echinacea and some of my more medicinal flowers, feverfew, lemon balm. This is kind of a fun pollinator spot. So we kind of put this here so that these raised beds that look like they have grass, it's just a cover crop that I need to cut. But these beds had squash and different things in them, and it was so nice to have a pollination station right here. Another thing you'll kind of see around my garden are some pots and water bottles. And I have kids too, so there's all sorts of things. But I have pots for random herbs that I don't necessarily want to put in the bed, but that I can move and take around. I do have a random oregano who is doing amazing, and he came back from my sister. So this kind of mirrors, I liked how this side kind of mirrors that side. That's something you can kind of take into account when you're planning out your garden, is design and just the way something looks. And this space is a lot of unused space, which we could eventually put more raised beds or turn it into like a dining area. This side, clearly the wind knocked this guy down. This guy over here is my fall garden, or kind of cool weather crops. Some kind of sad Swiss chard is trying to grow here. I just planted those out not too long ago, but I have my showstopper viola that is absolutely gorgeous. She is so pretty, from Florette. And then I have a bunch of collards right here, which we'll see if any of these take off. I think they will if I keep watering them. The soil's a little dry this morning. And then I have some arugula that went to seed. I was maybe gonna save some of these seeds. We'll see. She sure is pretty. But sometimes when you let something like this go to seed, it'll self-seed and I'll get more arugula eventually. So that's kind of an overview. This is kind of like a English inspired patchwork garden area that is in ground, slightly raised. And then these are more of our raised bed areas. And then this is totally in ground back here. You can see that silage tarp way out there. That's going to be our zinnia field for our flower farm operation. We just love having that field in front of the greenhouse. You can see the greenhouse way over there. It is just so beautiful in the summertime. So it's looking a little bare. Can't wait to do another update in a few months because it'll look so much more alive. So I wanted to share all that with you because I think it's important to see other people's gardens and how they're doing things to inspire you to do what you need to do on your family's farm. And it's so fun to see, you know, realistically, like, how many raised beds does somebody who has a pretty high production garden, how many raised beds do they have? So we only have like 4 true raised beds. And then we've utilized obviously a lot of in-ground space, which I know a lot of people can't quite do with clay, you know, compact soil. There's so many things to think about when you're planning your garden, that raised beds might be the best option for somebody who has, if you have that red clay, hard clay soil in the south like we do, raised beds are awesome. We do live on an old horse farm, so part of our pasture and the reason why we can in-ground garden is because a lot of this was grass and manured by horses. So it was like the perfect recipe for having an in-ground garden. It's not compact in most places. Some places you can kind of see the sandy parts over here. Closer to the greenhouse it is more compact, but out there it is so lush and we are so grateful for that. So that's why we've been able to do it this method, but I highly recommend the Back to Eden method if you're thinking about doing some in-ground gardening. It's basically like a cardboard wood chip situation where you lay down a bunch of cardboard and you literally put compost down for where you're going to be planting things, and then you do wood chips for your pathways, and it creates this living, beautiful space. I can't even describe it. It just is alive and it feels magical. So that's one thing to think about when you're starting your garden, to plan your garden. You want to make sure you're facing south would be a great idea to have your garden kind of facing south. The light, just the way that the light and the sun come over your garden, having your garden kind of facing south is great. My rows run north to, they run east to west. Sorry, I had to think about that for a second. They don't run south, they run the other way, but the garden itself is kind of facing the north and south. So east to west orientation for our rows has worked really well. But yeah, a southern facing greenhouse is really important if you're thinking about getting a greenhouse or even putting up one of those like tents that works as a greenhouse. I would highly recommend putting it in a southern facing direction. And an easy way to get the direction is to just pop open your phone and look at the compass and just see where you're at, and it's so interesting. So anyways, come along with me into the greenhouse and let's chat seeds. Real quick, I just wanted to show you the greenhouse. This is something that we added when we moved here. It used to be 2 horse stalls. You can kind of see the partition in the middle. It's something that we renovated into a kind of a lean-to greenhouse, and it turned out so much better than I ever could have imagined that it would have. Got my beautiful tulips growing right now. They're bringing me so much joy. But come on in the greenhouse and I'll show you around. We have lots of seed starts right now. We, on our farm, have a plant sale twice a year, and it's one of the most fun events that we have in general. And you can see my milk jug plants from last week. Oh, so much fun. Things are looking so beautiful in here. We have over 300 tomato starts, so it's a lot. And obviously I'm not planting all of these for us, but it's very fun to have a space to grow these things. But you don't have to have a greenhouse to garden, and you can use what you have. You can use a nice sunny room in your house to start seeds. And like we were talking about earlier, just make sure it's a south facing window and really push up the, see how I have this like pushed right up against the window, as close to the light as you can, and rotate that tray this would be filled with seeds, but rotate it every day so nothing gets, you know, stretching towards the light. But yeah, there's so much you can do. So today I'm going to talk to you about all things gardening, starting seeds, what to grow for your family, what to kind of start ahead. The first thing you're going to really want to do is think about, what do you as a family eat and buy on a regular basis? That is something that's really important to think about when you're planning your garden. Look at those grocery receipts. Pay attention to what you're putting in your cart. Are you putting in a lot of carrots and onions, potatoes, you know, fruits, veggies? What kind of veggies? What do you guys enjoy eating? Because that is going to be a good starting list for you to think about what you should plant for your garden. Because when you get something like a seed catalog, you find this one, it is amazing. Here, I'll flip it this way. But like, see how many varieties of radishes and pumpkins and peppers and onions, melons and leaves. Like, I don't know, there's so much in here that is good, but it can be very overwhelming very quickly. So having that list to guide you is going to give you a good, like, kind of some side rails for, okay, this is what we eat. It's almost like here's my list for my Christmas wish list. And we can pick out some tomatoes and cucumbers, because I know that those are 2 things that my family eats. And if you're just starting out, I would just start with like 5 to 10 just single variety options. So just do like 1 tomato, 1 cherry tomato, and just see how you like growing those things and see what works well in your area. Gardening is so fun, and it's very addicting, and it can get out of hand very quickly, and you can find yourself growing all sorts of things in very small amounts of time. So that's one thing that I recommend, is to just start looking at what you're already eating, what you need. For us, it's a lot of tomatoes, cucumbers, onions, garlic, peppers, okra, potatoes. Trying to think of what else is one of our favorites. We really, as far as berries, we really like strawberries. So we've kind of been expanding that patch. And this year we have our blueberry bushes, which I'm really excited about. And then I'd absolutely love to add some like raspberries and fruit bearing bushes. Those are perennials that'll come back every single year. You can just kind of tend to them in the fall. But you can kind of think about that as you're thinking through things too. It's easy to add a lot of seeds to your cart and not know where you're going to put everything. So that's where planning comes in. So this book is something I highly recommend. We actually thrifted this, but I have loved this book so much for just beginner tips on kind of what to plant together. I turned to the Long Hot Summers Garden Plan because that is our zone. 8A is just... it's long, it's hot, and here are some examples of some things you can plant together. So summer squash and cucumber, tomatoes right here, and then onions with some potatoes in the middle. See how they kind of have the potatoes down the middle, onions on the side, just like I have in my garden. So there's so much that you can companion plant together that will just be so helpful. So this has been a really fun resource. I really like this book a lot. There's a lot of examples. Year 1, year 2 gardening plan, just how to expand what to plant. It's really fun. Another thing I really recommend is actually sketching out. So you just saw our garden a little bit, and this isn't a true representation of what's going on, but like this kind of keeps going. But it's an example of kind of like, okay, this is kind of the layout. We're going to add 3 beds this year. So the raised beds are going to go here next to these ones. And all the little circles are my potted herbs. So I love having herbs kind of, you know, scattered about and not necessarily in the garden bed. They do deter pests, which is awesome. This represents my cattle panel, which I grow vertically from. So that's kind of awesome. And another thing I might eventually grow vertically is to do some cattle panels here so that I can grow things off the ground, and it's so much easier and saves so much space. So that's something you can think about when you're sketching out your garden. Just try to get it to scale if you can. See the dots? Each one represents 1 foot. That's really helpful to look at. So get a pen, sketch out imperfectly what you think your garden should look like, and just get started on where you want to put things. And here are some examples of some seeds that I'm starting in my garden this year. Some things like tomatoes and peppers are something that need to get started in like early February for somewhere like zone 8. So some of these things you may want to come to a local farm and buy like a plant start, and I'll show you. So this guy was started in mid-February. So you would want to come buy something like this if you haven't started seeds already. Just as a little heads up, because some of this stuff is really fun to look at, but you really need to pay attention to the back of the seed packet. How many days it sprouts in, how many days, and sometimes it says how many days it takes for fruiting. The Breakers Creek ones don't, for whatever reason. Let's see, maturity. 21 days on a very hot day to 62 days if you're sowing in the cold. So it's very interesting to see those ranges. So when you're planning your garden, you can kind of have an idea of when things are going to be coming to harvest, and certain items like carrots and kale you can actually plant again in August to get like a fall crop that you can harvest in early spring. So some of these things are going to feel overwhelming at first, but just like I said, just get your list down and get 5 to 10 things that you know your family eats. Follow the directions on the back of the seed packets. I love the heirloom seeds from Baker's Creek Heirloom Seeds. So True Seeds is another seed company very close to us that's local. I have loved their varieties too. And another one is Southern Exposure Seed Exchange. I love getting seeds that come from our growing zone. And if you live in a northern climate, you'll have other people in your area that are more local to you, where these vegetables are adapted to a southern growing environment, which is really important because something like a lettuce will bolt very easily in the heat. So some of these you'll want to make sure are adapted to our day length, especially for onions. and make sure that it's not going to bolt and you get your harvest. So these are some examples of seeds and places to get them. The next thing is, what do you grow this stuff in? There are so many things that you can use that are low cost, no cost, or, you know, find on Marketplace. You don't have to spend a lot of money on what to grow this stuff in. I just use an organic seed starting mix from my local feed and seed. And I do grow a lot of things in what they call cells. So this is a 50 cell tray that I'm actually going to start some sunflowers early. These are things that do not like frost, but if I have them in the greenhouse, you can see it's covered. I can close all the doors at night and it stays about 20 degrees warmer in here than it does outside. So something like sunflowers, I can start early inside. You could start them inside your house and you would just have to make sure you harden them off, which means taking them on little field trips outside to make sure that they adapt to the climate outside. So that's one way that you can grow things, is in those cells that come with the domes. You can find them on Amazon, Walmart, probably your feed and seed. These are another thing that I decided to do this year. They're called cow pots. They are compostable pots where the plant, you transplant them in here, and their roots have the ability to kind of poke through. I actually have a tomato doing this. I'll show you an example. Look at the little roots poking through his little pot. It just allows them not to be root bound in these pots. And you plant this right into the ground, and then it really is just one of those things that where you don't have to disturb the roots, and it's healthier for the plant. I've really liked cow pots. They're a little expensive, but I've really enjoyed them. I get mine on greenhousemegastore.com, I think is the website. And another thing you can get is like these little pots. You can get these on Amazon, or a lot of people locally. If you ask around, I got these on from a friend secondhand, and there is somebody somewhere who has a bunch of these laying around and they don't want to throw them away or they feel bad, but they want them to go to somebody who could use them. So that's also a good idea. Another thing you could do is have a little example set up. So kind of like these cell trays, set up an egg carton, put your little seeds in there. That's a great way to do it. We talked about the milk jug method last week. Here's an example of mine that are growing so beautifully. And here's a link to that video if you want to check that out. Very good video on how to start milk jug gardening. Something like peppers and eggplants and tomatoes are something you're going to want to buy locally. I would recommend shopping locally at a farm near you and not going to somewhere like Home Depot or Lowe's, because those places just get their seed starts in bulk and there's not like a local family just growing those. I don't know. It takes away the connection, and they're also more expensive. So when you're looking at getting some plant starts, I would shop around local, ask on Facebook Marketplace, kind of ask around, see what's available for you in your area. But I highly recommend getting some good summer annuals that are started already if it's something like a tomato, pepper, or an eggplant. But the other things you can start now, and you have plenty of time. Nobody's behind on anything. You can plant a lot of these things in the cells and start them inside for like an early couple of weeks. We here in AA are about 2 to 3 weeks away from our last frost. So I would still put some of these seeds, if you're starting some seeds, I would start a lot of seeds inside, get them ready to harden off, and then put out in your garden in about 2 to 3 weeks. Look at that last frost date and make sure you give yourself a good little buffer, one way or the other. It's very tempting to plant things outside, but if you don't have cover, things can die very quickly. It just takes one night to just kick it back, and it's very sad. And just another final note on just gardening in general, don't be afraid to start. Don't feel so overwhelmed that you don't do anything at all. It's really easy to fall into that trap of worrying if you're even going to be good at this. Just try some things. Put some things in cups, things you have lying around the house. Don't spend a bunch of money. Milk jugs are amazing for starting seeds. I highly recommend that idea too. That would also be a cover if it were to kind of frost a little bit for some of these cold hardy plants. I wouldn't put like zucchinis in them outside, but you could even start milk jugs inside if you just needed a container to do that. So check out that video for more information on that. But let me know what you're gonna start to grow. I'm so excited to support you and your family as you grow abundance and wonderful things for your family, to cross things off the grocery list. Growing my own food has changed me so much in so many beautiful ways. And I cannot tell you how excited I get when I talk about gardening, because it truly has changed me to my core. And it's changed the way we've looked at food, and it just opens up this world to so many more possibilities. And I get very excited about talking about it. So I hope that this video empowers you and your family to try a garden this year and to grow things that are going to be productive and robust for you to really feed your family through the summer, through part of the winter. I'm going to have a lot of videos coming up on food preservation, canning, putting food away for the later seasons. So watch out for those too. But let's embark on this journey together, and I'm so excited to have you right here with us. So thank you for watching, friend. Like this video, subscribe if you like this content and you want to see more from us, because we have lots more coming up in the upcoming weeks. And I can't wait to share with you all about how our garden is going to grow right alongside yours. Have a good week, friends.